Son found guilty of murdering his parents. Probe into woman's death after visit to Chinese medicine clinic.
And there are people in both our countries and beyond who oppose a diplomatic resolution. My message to you, the people of Iran, is that together we have to speak up for the future we seek.
And Barack Obama appeals for stronger ties between Washington and Tehran.
Good evening. A man accused of murdering and dismembering his parents 2 years ago was found guilty today. He'll be sentenced on Monday. His co-defendant was acquitted and is a free man tonight. Ronnie Samtani has our top story.
After about 7 hours of deliberation, the 9 jurors found Henry Chow guilty of murder by an 8-1 verdict. His alleged accomplice, Tse Chun-kei, was found not guilty in a unanimous decision. Chow appeared to be calm after hearing the verdict at the court of first instance, but Tse became emotional and had to be held by court staff as he almost fell in the dock. The 2 defendants were charged with murdering Chow's parents on March 1, 2013. The court heard that Chow had been planning to kill them for a period of time and even prepared to dispose of the bodies. Shortly before the bodies were discovered later that month, Chow confessed to police that he'd killed his parents with Tse. And after the defendants were arrested, police found body parts in 2 refrigerators and plastic bags in a Tai Kok Choi flat that belonged to Tse. Chow and Tse had earlier admitted to charges of preventing the lawful burial of the victims. For that, Tse was sentenced to 12 months in prison. But because he has already been remanded in custody for nearly 2 years, he was released immediately.
Yes, I was asking for a sentence without immediate release.
Chow has been sent to the Lai Chi Kok Reception Center and will be sentenced on Monday. The maximum sentence for murder is life imprisonment. Ronnie Samtani, TVB News.
A new batch of flu vaccine is expected to arrive in Hong Kong soon, but because of limited supply, not all high-risk patients will be able to get the jab. Evelina Leung reports.
More than 400 people have died in the current flu outbreak. Because of the emergence of new viral strains, there was a drop in the effectiveness of the first batch of vaccine bought by the government. A new type of vaccine is expected to arrive in Hong Kong at the end of April at the earliest, and it will be made available to the public from the end of May. However, only 100,000 doses will be available. The first group to be vaccinated, about 60,000 people staying at elderly homes, to be administered by private doctors.
First of all, we will provide the Southern Hemisphere seasonal influenza vaccine to residents staying in the residential home for the elderly. Those actually, more than half of them are aged over 85, and many of them are very frail and have chronic diseases. The second arrangement is to provide vaccination to the elderly through the Hospital Authority General Outpatient Clinic. This will be open to all elderly in the Hong Kong residents.
There are currently more than 1 million people over the age of 65. And health authorities admit that not all high-risk patients can get the jab. And depending on the progress of the vaccination program, coverage will be expanded to gradually include high-risk patients who are younger, children, and medical staff. Evelina Lang, TVB News.
A woman collapsed during a visit to a Chinese medicine clinic in Wan Chai. She later died in hospital. Health Chief Ko Wing-man called it a rare case and said the coroner's office will look into it. Ronnie Samtani reports.
The incident happened when the woman was treated at a clinic in this commercial building on Jaffe Road yesterday. Police said they received a call saying the 29-year-old patient fainted at about 8:40 last night. She was rushed to Ruttenji Hospital, where she was certified dead. The woman had reportedly received a massage and acupuncture treatment at the clinic. This morning, police officers arrived at the clinic to investigate. Staff from the Department of Health were also at the scene to assist with the probe. Secretary for Food and Health Ko Man said there are risks with any medical procedure, but he noted this case is rare.
I think generally, irrespective of whether it is Chinese medicine or Western medicine, before conducting any specific treatment procedure to any patients, it is responsibility of the practitioners concerned to communicate adequately with the patients and to understand the background, particularly the clinical background of patients, to make sure that he or she understands the procedures as well as is suitable for the procedure.
Ko said the case requires in-depth investigation and has been referred to the coroner's office to determine whether the patient's death was related to her treatment. Chinese medicine experts pointed out that acupuncture is generally safe and is a common treatment for pain, but they stressed it's not suitable for everyone.
We would advise the foreign people who are not quite suitable for acupuncture treatments, for example, pregnancy, malignant cancers, the bleeding diseases, and severe infection disease on the skin, which may bring some adverse effect.
And Feng Ju from the Chinese Medicine Development Committee expressed concerns that some acupuncture practitioners in Hong Kong are not licensed. She urged the government to step up supervision to make sure that they are certified. Ronnie Samtani, TVB News.
Overseas now, and U.S. President Barack Obama had a direct message for the people of Iran yesterday on the day commemorating the Persian New Year. As Alan Bookneer reports, Obama said another time to pursue better relations between the two countries may not come again soon.
This year, we have the best opportunity in decades to pursue a different future between our countries. My message to you, the people of Iran, is that together we have to speak up for the future we seek. As I've said many times before, I believe that our countries should be able to resolve this issue peacefully with diplomacy.
The issue Obama was referring to is the talks on Iran's nuclear program. Western powers suspect Tehran of wanting to create atomic weapons. Iran denies that and says its ambitions are purely peaceful. Negotiators for 6 major powers and Iran are racing to meet a March 31st deadline for a framework agreement that would see Tehran scale back its nuclear program in exchange for the lifting of crippling sanctions. The talks have raised concerns among U.S. lawmakers that the White House will cut Congress out of any deal and will treat Iran too lightly. Obama administration officials told a congressional committee that if a nuclear deal is struck with Iran, lawmakers should still leave congressionally imposed sanctions in place.
If we're able to secure a comprehensive understanding, we will structure nuclear-related sanctions relief in a way that is phased, proportionate, and reversible. We will need to see verified steps on Iran's part before sanctions are lifted. And we believe that powerful U.S. legislative sanctions should not be terminated for years to come so that we continue to retain important leverage years into a deal.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry met with the Iranian foreign minister in Switzerland for a 4th day of talks yesterday. But European negotiators say a framework agreement is still not likely in the coming days. Alan Bookneer, TVB News.
The White House says it will reassess its options on U.S.-Israeli relations and Middle East diplomacy. This follows comments from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that there would be no Palestinian state created on his watch, a stance he's now backed away from. James Aiken reports.
Netanyahu's election victory on Tuesday was a stunning turnaround after a tight race that had threatened to end his lengthy rule. His campaign gained steam when he laid out a series of hardline positions that included ruling out the creation of a Palestinian state. The quest for Palestinian statehood is a cornerstone of U.S. diplomacy and part of President Barack Obama's Middle East policy. Now, Netanyahu is attempting to minimize differences with the White House, saying he could support a demilitarized Palestinian state if conditions in the region change.
We have so many things that unite us, and we have a situation in the Middle East that is very dangerous and presents a common challenge. And America has no greater ally than Israel, and Israel has no greater ally than the United States.
But the earlier comments, along with the speech to Congress at the invitation of House Republicans, have put Netanyahu on a collision course with the White House, which has denounced the tactics as a cynical effort to mobilize voters.
What is apparent is that in the context of the campaign, and while he was the sitting prime minister of Israel, he walked back from commitments that Israel had previously made to a two-state solution. I have to sort of see what sort of policy and priorities the prime minister chooses, but we certainly are in a position to evaluate our approach to these issues.
The White House says Obama made the same points to Netanyahu during a congratulatory phone call yesterday, but it has not said if a reassessment of American policy would mean putting distance between the U.S. and Israel at the UN. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas says Netanyahu's campaign comments are very worrisome. Palestinian officials hope to use Netanyahu's hardline positions to build a stronger case for international pressure on Israel and possible unilateral measures towards statehood. James Aiken, TVB News.
The Islamic State militant group has claimed responsibility for Wednesday's attack on a Tunis museum that left 23 people dead. But Tunisian authorities said the two slain gunmen had no clear links to the extremists and may have been part of another militant cell inspired by that group. Defying the extremists, hundreds of Tunisians rallied yesterday at the National Bardo Museum to proclaim solidarity with the victims. Tunisian security forces have arrested 9 people in connection with the attack, saying 5 of them were directly connected. Meanwhile, 2 cruise ships that had 17 passengers among the dead suspended their visits and left for Spain, delivering an immediate economic blow to Tunisia. And still ahead in our newscast, suspect nabbed over threats made to U.S. ambassador to Japan. Locally, tougher security measures proposed for LegCo. And the world witnesses an eclipse.
I must take this journey, no matter how difficult it is, and then you will love me again.
Would you come with me, sir?
Why are you going to Washington, D.C.? I'm going to meet the President of the United States. I have something to say to him.
Mr. President!
My name is Khan, and I'm not a terrorist.
Midnight tonight. My name is Khan, on Pearl's Friday Hall of Fame.
受冬季季候風影響，天氣持續寒冷。睇下氣象先生嘅情況。傳播登革熱嘅白紋伊蚊喺冬天依然活躍，只要有少少積水就可以滋生。市民要注意清理屋企同周圍嘅積水。大家喺冬天都要做好防蚊措施，唔好俾啲蚊同我哋一齊過冬啊！
The time now is 7:43. The time check was brought to you by Seiko.
Welcome back. South Korea today handed over the remains of 68 more Chinese soldiers who died in the Korean War. The ceremony was held at Incheon Airport, and exercising respect, South Korean soldiers handed over the remains and related belongings, one by one, to Chinese officials. The coffins were draped with China's national flag before the remains were flown home by a Chinese military plane. In March, Seoul returned the remains of 437 soldiers to China.
Japanese police have arrested a man from Okinawa accusing him of making death threats to U.S. Ambassador Caroline Kennedy. Authorities believe this